Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Cooks by Carrie. If you're new here, I'm Carrie, and for today's Foodie Friday video, I am sharing how you make this type of icing that is used on cookies like this. This type of icing is called royal icing, and it's actually a lot easier to make than I think people think it is. I don't know. Or you might not even have ever heard of royal icing, but you've seen this type of icing on like sugar cookies before. So in today's video, I'll be sharing exactly how to make it. To start off with this recipe, I'm using half of the recipe in the Joy of Cooking cookbook. But basically, what the half recipe is 1 3/4 cup of sugar, powdered sugar that is, 1 egg white pasteurized. You can either buy this at a store in a container or pasteurize it yourself. If you just Google how to pasteurize an egg, you can find it really easily. If you want a video on that, I can also make one. If you guys want that type of thing, let me know in the comments down below. And a half of a juice of a lemon. And I actually also ended up using about a tablespoon of water. But that's all. Super simple stuff. To start off with a hand mixer or with a stand mixer, or if you really want to, with a whisk. I know I say this in like every video that I have to use a hand mixer, but I just want to give you guys options. So yeah. You are going to whip your egg white until it is at stiff peaks. So if you're unsure what stiff peaks are, they are when you can like flip the bowl over and the egg whites like don't drop. Like you can flip it over and nothing falls out. That's how I remember it. So you can see this first stage is the foamy, and then it's the soft peaks, and then it's the hard peaks. I think there might also be another stage in there, but I can't really remember that one. But this is the basic knowledge you need to know for royal icing. So yeah, you just want to blend them all up until you've got those hard peaks. Now, gradually, I'm going to go ahead and add in the powdered sugar. So, here's a little fun fact. If you realize that you do not have powdered sugar at home, but you have granulated sugar, you can actually make it. So, basically, what you do is you put the amount of sugar you need. So, for me, this was 1 3/4 cup into a blender and blend it up. And what happens is it turns into powdered sugar. I can't remember exactly where I learned this, but it's just like it has changed my baking in a great way because I feel like a lot of times I'll forget to check and then I'll realize I actually don't have any powdered sugar, and then I feel like I can't make anything that requires it, but you actually can, and it's much easier. So yeah, you just want to add it slowly at a time. And let's talk about royal icing for a second. So what would you use royal icing for? So it's typically used for decorating sugar cookies, but some other uses of royal icing include like the glue for gingerbread houses. You'll see a consistency we get in a second with, or I get in a second with the powdered sugar, is that it's super, super thick. That's exactly what you'd use for gingerbread, but houses. But we need to make it a little bit thinner to decorate cookies. But this icing is not typically used on cakes or really anything but the sugar cookies, I believe. That's the only way I've ever seen it used. And basically, it's a very thin icing that has like a light lemon flavor because we're adding in a little bit of lemon juice. And it's really perfect for icing cookies because it gets hard very quickly. So that's another thing. You need to use this icing right away. Do not make this 20 minutes in advance. Do not make this a day in advance. You need to use it immediately after you make it. This is a really important step because it will get very, very hard. And then you can't use it. So it would be a waste. So yeah, right here is where you can see that consistency where it is so thick. This is the type you'd need for doing a gingerbread house, but for me, I had to add in about a tablespoon of water to make it very thin. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the water and then begin mixing. Just a little bit at a time. I end up incorporating all of it. And then you just want to be careful because, this is a really thick mixture. And you can see almost immediately it gets way thinner. And the whisk isn't that strong. So you just have to be careful. And yeah, this is really all there is to royal icing. Very, very simple. Can be done in a matter of like seconds, basically. And it's such a good way to elevate your rolled out sugar cookies because you can make them really pretty. Okay, so now comes the fun part. You want to portion out your icing into different bowls depending on how many colors you want to make. Because typically with sugar cookies, when you're icing them, you're going to need a lot of colors to, make certain shapes and stuff. So since I was making Halloween themed sugar cookies, I went with the colors purple, orange, and black. And I left some white. And you don't have to go all equal with this. So for me, I just did a little bit of black, and then I did a lot of orange, some purple, and then I left some white. And what you want to do is just add in 1 to 2 drops of food coloring. Now mine is this food coloring. I cannot remember the specific brand, but it's really, really good. And you want it, gel is preferred here, but if you don't have gel, then that's okay. Just because sometimes, well, first of all, the color is usually better in gel food coloring. And secondly, there's not as much like liquid. It's more like it's a gel. So it's not going to affect the consistency of the frosting that much. So yeah, just add in the food coloring and then mix really well with a fork, a spatula, anything you have on hand, and just make sure that everything's incorporated. You could do this step with the mixer still, but just make sure to start with the lightest color and end with the darkest color. So for me, I'd start with the orange, then I make the purple, then I make the black. But you might have a little bit of color crossing, so I just prefer using like forks or, different utensils. But you can do whatever you would like. And just, yeah, this is really easy. I mean, royal icing, it's so, so simple and just so great. Now it is time for the last step. This step, we are going to be putting the icing into a bag. So typically I would use a piping bag. However, I'm currently out at the moment, so I'm using a sandwich bag. You want to make, that's just like what the specific type of like Ziploc is labeled, like that's the size, I guess. You want to make sure that your Ziploc or plastic bag only has 2 corners, and that is because if there's like a bag, like some of them, they kind of have like a rectangle bottom with kind of like 4 corners. I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but I feel like if you had one on hand, you'd be able to understand what I'm saying. But if you have this type of bag, when you cut a hole in the corner, then there are 2 holes, and then you can't really ice with it because it squirts out of 2 ends. So you really want to get one that only has 2 corners. And then what you do, so you fill the bag by lining the glass with it and then pouring all the frosting in, and then you smooth it all out into one corner, because then basically what you end up doing at the end is squishing like the bag at the top, like twisting it all together and then cutting off a really small corner. It'll be better to see with this piping bag. So I did find one piping bag, but this piping bag was super weird. It was super small, and so it didn't fit into like my glass. So I had to get a really tiny glass and then pour it in that. And then basically you'll see what I do here, but I just do the exact same process. And why this process is really good is because a lot of times when I'm baking by myself. Obviously when I film, I have my dad who helps me with the camera. But most time when I do it for fun, I'm just alone, and I assume that maybe a lot of you guys are baking by yourself. And so it's kind of hard to hold a piping bag in one hand and put the frosting in at the same time. So this way it's kind of like you have another person there even though it's just you. So then I'm doing the same thing, adding in the black frosting, and at this point I also do switch to a smaller spatula just because it's way easier, and then I'm adding in the frosting. Now, something about the frosting that I just thought about is that when you're using food dye, sometimes it does get on your fingers. The best tip I have is if you get it a little bit on your finger, don't try and smudge it out. Don't try and like rub it in. Instead, immediately run your hand under water and a lot of times it just kind of like floats off, if that makes any sense, and it gets you get rid of it that way. So that's a really helpful tip if you get any food dye on you. So yeah, then I'm just taking the top of the piping bag, and I'm going ahead and smoothing it out, and you'll see this. This is a trick. Just all the way down, and then you're good to go. And that's it for royal icing. Just make sure to use it immediately. And that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, please follow me on Instagram at Cooks by Carrie. I post lots of fun photos of the food I cook. And I will see you on Monday for a new video. This video will be the last video in this like little mini series on how to decorate these types of cookies. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, like, comment down below what you'd like to see next, share this video with a friend, and hit that notification bell to get notified when I post a new video. I have a goal of 100 subscribers. If you could please help me with that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Alrighty, bye guys.